Hey there, Veteran Nation fans. I am talking to you today because I have teamed up with a company that's dedicated to supporting veterans. What they do is they help you gather all the medical evidence that you're going to need to submit a VA disability claim. Now, it's all that is designed to help you get the benefits that you have earned. Right now, more than 17 million veterans don't have their full benefits. And if that sounds something familiar, either for yourself or a family member, now is the time to act. With this company, what they offer is free consultations with the medical team so they can figure out how they can best help you. And what they provide is board certified doctors with experience working with the VA, comprehensive medical documentation for both physical and mental conditions. And the services that they provide include nexus letters, telehealth evaluations, DBQs, TDIU, aid and attendance, and so much more. What you're going to do is you're going to click the link that's in the description of this video and sign up for a free consultation. Make sure you do me a favor, share this, and also tag a veteran. Let's help more people get every single thing that they have earned.
Hey, welcome back, Veteran Nation fans. We are back with another episode of Veteran Nation Live, and I'm really happy about today's show. I think, this is an idea that I didn't have, um, that I wasn't. Uh, that I wasn't really thinking of. And it was sitting out there right in front of me. I feel like an idiot for not having thought about it before. But, TC, who is a co host of the show, he interviewed me. That's how our relationship started off. He was like, "Hey, why don't you come on Minnesota Black Robe Regiment? We'll talk." And we did that. And I never brought him on to interview him. So I was thinking about it. I was like, you know what? This is a really good thing that we should be doing. So let's bring TC on and interview him. So without further ado, I'm going to bring on my longtime Veteran Nation co-host and the host of Minnesota Black Robe Regiment, TC Pearson. Hey, TC, good to see you.
I should act really uncomfortable right now, like, oh hey, I I'm not used to doing, and I'm literally not used to doing this. I'm like, I don't know what to do. So, hey, thanks for having me on, Skipper. It's great to meet you in person.
Right. We've shared the screen for way too many hours, but I've never, I know a lot about you, and you know a lot about me. We've been,
And
even
yet
though
we're
we've
still
never,
friends.
yeah, right, and we've never met face to face. That's the other thing. We've never met face to face because you refuse to leave the cold upper north of. I think you're probably just snowed in today of Minnesota.
Well, yeah, not like, well, if I got like, you know, I see somebody named Georgie's Life Unfiltered. I don't know who your audience is. So she said something about to get roasted. Um, I did today. I got roasted. It is. I skipped my workout and went straight to lawn work this morning, and I would have been less sweaty in a 86-degree room on a treadmill for 3 hours than I was doing yard work.
Well, we're gonna get roasted later on by my haters because we're both wearing BCGs apparently.
I don't
I I,
I
I
don't
guess just
understand.
any type of dark rim glasses count as BCGs to them. I don't get it.
So all the cool guys wearing sunglasses
The
are now
the
wearing
only way I would wear my BCGs is if I needed some type of eye protection, and that was all that was available.
I don't know who Dan Barbie is. Is Dan Barbie one of your haters? Uh,
No, Dan comes here every once in a while. Um, today though, we are just doing an interview of TC. Now, if TC wants to get into subjects like what
I
Dan's
don't
mentioning, we can.
I don't. I have a very brief on scene interview with Mike Lindell when I did an event several months ago, but I don't.
He is getting just dragged through the coals by the right this week because of his comments about immigration.
I've never been a Lindell guy, to be honest with you, so I don't know what that's. But anyway, so Skipper, I'm here. I'm yours.
So I'm glad that we can do this for a couple reasons. The first one is a lot of veterans. I get like my haters are the ones who always say this again, but I have had supporters ask me, "Why don't you bring on more veterans?" And your veteran nation, you should interview more veterans. I would love to. I would love to. I have never said no to any veteran that's wanted to come on, and I've invited so many. A lot of veterans just don't want to talk about what they did. They don't want to talk about their story. They'll talk to me one on one, but they just don't wanna publicly put it out there, and for some of them, I do understand. For instance, there's a couple that I know have some very sensitive stories, and not like it's gonna bother them, but, like, it could affect other people, so I get that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Uh and likewise, I've got a very good friend of mine, Fred from Brooklyn, who died almost a month ago today. And actually, maybe a month ago, we became friends on Twitter. He was Jeffrey Epstein's mason. Like any type of stone or brickwork done in Epstein's house, he would do. And I talked to Fred for quite a bit about that and encouraged him to come on the show. I encouraged him to talk to other journalists about what he saw, but he was like, "No, I don't wanna talk about that stuff publicly. I'll talk about I'm worried that someone might try to threaten my family or accuse me of being a liar," and I get that. And, veterans have similar things. So, hopefully, by watching this interview, other veterans will see this and wanna tell their stories. So,
Or they'll watch this and go, I'm never gonna do a show like that. I don't know. Um, no,
I'm not
I
all soft,
don't. Yeah, go
but
ahead.
I'll keep it mostly softballs.
You can you can ask whatever you want. I mean, I'm an open book. I don't
So when did you stop beating your wife? No.
never.
That's
Why would I
that's the one
stop?
that they that when she starts listening.
What do you tell what do you never mind, I won't make that joke.
See, we can get ourselves in trouble. We don't.
We no,
So let's start off. You're from Minnesota originally, correct?
I was born in, Minneapolis at St. Mary's Hospital. So, yeah, I'm an original, but moved away from Minnesota when I was 3 and a half, and was raised in West Central, Southwest Iowa.
You heard it
So,
here, folks. South Central.
yeah.
So that
It
wasn't.
closer to closer to Omaha, and so for a while we lived about an hour and a half from Sioux City, which if you know anything about Sioux City used to be the livestock hub of the United States between them and Omaha. So you had the Sioux City stockyards and the Omaha stockyards, which were mass endeavor. And so I had my maternal grandparents had a very big spread, outside of, in a little county called Crawford County, and they had a big spread, hogs, cattle, and then, grain, and my grandfather was a very well-respected, well-known, landholder, um, in that area of Crawford County, and we would take runs up to Sioux City or to Omaha to the stockyards. Those are some of my earliest memories when we moved down to Iowa. And my dad went to work for Farmland, which most of you are familiar with Farmland. It's, their pork producing company. Um, he also worked for Iowa Beef Packing for quite a while, which is where he um, established calluses upon calluses, as he told it, because he worked in the hide processing center. And he would, yeah, it was an interesting way to start. Um, but we were agrarian. We were very, very agricultural where we were, and so then eventually Dad got a management buyer's position with Farmland after he went to work for them in a little town called Red Oak, which is southwest Iowa, about 45 minutes from the Iowa-Missouri border and about 50 miles from Omaha. So I grew up close to a pretty decent metro area, and went for the most part, all my schooling was in Red Oak, and that's where I graduated from before I went out and failed at college. And true to form, everything I decide to do, I do very well. So when I decided to fail, I failed super great. So
I, there are days where I'm like, I'm shocked that I did finish my degree because there for a while, I like I didn't go to a party school, but I did go to a school to party. uh,
um,
so you graduate high school, and
yep.
did you go straight to college, or was it like I'm gonna figure things out first?
No, I started at a private college. I was raised Missouri Synod Lutheran, which is like almost the most conservative Lutheran church you can find outside of the Wisconsin Synod. The Missouri Synod is just like kind of like two steps reserve below Wisconsin Synod. Um, so I went to a college in Seward, Nebraska, that was a very conservative Lutheran school, and I was going to do a pre-law, and this won't shock anybody who knows me. I was focusing on pre-law, focusing on medical school or law school, and I saw all the chemistry that was involved in medical school, and I hate math. And if you know anything about chemistry, it's a lie. Chemistry is not science; it's math. And I got sold a bill of goods,
Very much.
and I said, no, chemistry's not, don't tell me, no, biochem is not math or not science. It's math. You liars, you damned liars. And so I chose pre-law because it was mostly philosophy and history. And so I started at Concordia College in Seward, and you probably didn't have this problem, and I don't mean this as an insult. This is actually a credit to you. I got through school with decent grades without studying. Like,
That's how
because
I
I
was.
hate,
Yeah.
yeah, I I hate math. So I didn't even have to study for math. I just had to memorize for math. Absolutely, So I would just memorize. And I got to college and I didn't know how to study. I could write, research papers. And that was before the interwebs. And I could write research papers. I could do research. I could write thesis and whatnot. But I did not know how to study. And I'm like, what the hell is happening here? This is too much work. I have not had to work this hard in my life for education. And so I transferred from Concordia after a semester. I transferred out to the University of Montana. And my dad and I started college at the same time. My dad's first year of college was my first year of college, and I had made him a bet that I was going to graduate before him and with better grades. That was stupid. So yeah, I shouldn't have made that bet. So I got out to the University of Montana, and I'm like, this is still stupid and way too much work. So you know what? Gulf War is happening. I'll join the military because rah rah, let's go attack Iraq for America. I don't know. I don't. It's at the time I was like, yeah, go. Which shows how much older I am than Skipper, by the way. We've never talked about it, but I am drastically older than Skipper. So
You don't look it.
thank you. I will send you. I'll send you that Cash App later.
And yeah, so you come into the Army, and where did you do basic?
Fort Sill, Oklahoma, home
I have
of
an
the
I have an
artillery.
uncle
And
who retired out of there and got banned from the whole state of Oklahoma. I'll have to tell you that story later on.
boy, you've got to be pretty bad to get kicked out of Oklahoma.
It was actually pretty simple. You just be drunk driving and hit a cop directing traffic.
Wow, that's a throwback too, because cops don't direct traffic anymore. They just
Right.
impede it now. But anyway, that's a different part of the conversation. Um, no, yeah, Fort Sill, Oklahoma, and I didn't understand why. When I joined them, when I joined up, my recruiter was like, "Hey, man, I'd love to have you go take the ASVAB, because you know they always want to know how smart you is and what you're qualified to do." And I went from Missoula, Montana to Helena, Montana. And if you don't know anything about Montana, Missoula is part of the most beautiful scenery in the country. You can't find any more beautiful area than Missoula, Montana. To Helena, which was once probably beautiful, but is now just the home of the world's largest open pit mine ever. It literally the largest pit mine in the world. It is literally a hole in the ground. It and it's apropos that the Army recruiting ASVAB station is in Helena, Montana. It just the military is like, the skipper. It's a giant hole in the ground, and it's great that they decided to put their processing center in Helena, Montana. So no, excuse me, it was Butte. It's Butte, not Helena. It's been so man, that's how long it's been. It's been over 30 years. Damn, I'm old. Um, but yeah, we we had a great time driving out there. I took my ASVAB and I came back and he's like, "I got good news for you." And I'm like, "Well, what's that?" And he goes, "You can do whatever you want to do in the military." I'm like, "Oh, so I don't have to just be a grunt?" And he's like, "No, you can do whatever you want." I'm like, "Okay. So what are some of the things?" And he offered me communications and I'm like, "Well, what's this particular job do?" And at the time it was 31 Victor, which was unit level communication security and expediency. So basically, my entire job going into training was to be able to not only work on and install radio systems in vehicles and, stationary, static garrison units, but also to be responsible for the high end security of them. So we had to carry around security control devices. They called them like Kick 35s. And these were little devices that we were responsible, they were attached to us. We were responsible for keeping all of the communication secure.
Yep.
And I'm like, great. And he goes, and when you do that, he says, while you're at it, you should probably take the DLAB, which is a defense language aptitude battery. And I look, well, when do I do that? And he goes, oh, when you get down to basic training, and your training will be at Fort Sill, because you'll be working with forward observers. So because of what we would do, we weren't normally assigned to straight signal battalions or signal units. We would
Mhm.
be assigned to um, ranger teams.
Mhm.
We could be assigned to go ahead, Skipper. I'm sorry. I'm
Oh, I was just gonna say for the audience, those who don't know what a forward observer is, it's an artillery, normally an artillery officer, but it can also be a staff NCO, someone who is familiar with artillery, and they help the units talk artillery or air assets or even
Mhm.
naval guns onto targets.
Yeah. Um, and at the time, forward observers, they were training them like scout and snipers,
Yep.
because you
Yep.
go out in teams of 2 to 4, and you'd have a comms guy, you'd have somebody, everybody was infantry, it's
Hmm.
kind of like the Marine Corps, everybody's infantry. And so we would train alongside infantry, or not infantry, but artillery and artillery infantry guys as the forward observers. And so we did all of our training down there. It was the only signal school not at Fort Gordon. And it was because of the work that we would do. And so he told me all that. So I get to Fort Sill and I get to reception at Fort Sill. And they come up and they're like, "Would you like to take the D lab?" And I'm like, "What's that?" And they're like, "That's the defense language aptitude battery." And I'm like, What's that mean? And they're like, well, we're going to find out how adept you are at learning foreign languages. And I'm like, what would I be doing if I'm not taking the D lab? Cleaning. I'm like, oh, let's deal. You know, we got. I took the D lab, and my D lab results came back for. I think it was at the time. It was I qualified to learn every single language that the Defense Language School offered, if I remember correctly, save like Farsi, which apparently is the most difficult language to learn. And they said, we would love to offer you the opportunity to go to the Defense Language School. I'm like, oh, cool. What's that entail? They're like, you have to sign a 5-year extension to your contract because the school is almost 2 years long.
They're going to get their money's worth.
I said, no, thank you. And they're like, are you sure? Because it's in California. And I'm like, oh, tell me more. And they're like,
Beautiful Monterey Bay.
Where? Monterey Bay. Yeah, Monterey Bay. So it's Fort Ord, California, Monterey Bay.
Where Clint Eastwood was famously stationed.
Yeah. And I'm like, how does my contract? They're like, I think it was. I think it extended me out another 5 years or something. And I'm like, no thanks. Which taking it because I would probably be making a crap ton more money than I am making in my life right now with language training like that. But the other part of me, now that I know what I know about
With that language, you'd be working for the company.
yeah, and now that I know what I know, I'm glad I didn't do it because I found out a lot of things about Fort Ord and what actually went on at Fort Ord and what they use Fort Ord for, which is a completely different show sometime. So I'm really glad I dodged that bullet. But then I went from basic, and I did my AIT there, but it wasn't OSIT. So I did basic on one part. I did basic on the training side of Fort Sill, and then I did my AIT on the regular permanent party side of Fort Sill. And then I went off to jump school, where I learned how to fall out of an airplane gracefully.
I was supposed to go to jump school. I was my seat was given up to someone of another MOS that didn't need it because, well, they don't get a good chance to get promoted. You will. So I missed out then. But then after I came back in as a reservist and they put me with Angleco, they were like, "Do you want to jump out of a plane?" And I was like, "I'm 40. I don't think I want to do that." All it's going to take is one bad landing, and now I'm, broken leg or hip.
There's really no such thing as a good landing in jump school, except for the
Yeah.
ones you can walk away from. Yeah, I'd say. People are like, why would you want to jump out of? Why would you want to jump out of a perfectly good airplane? And I'm like, you've never clearly ever been on a military aircraft ever. It's
I did have a friend of mine, and she was in a helicopter crash, survived. Everybody walked away. And what did they do to all the survivors of the helicopter crash? They sent a new helicopter to go pick them up to take them to their destination.
Oh, bro, you have like no idea. It's that's the entire theory behind airborne, even outside of jump school. So like when I went overseas after I finished jump school. I got married. That's an old part of my life. I married a gal that I knew in Missoula. We both joined the military at the same time. I think I joined a month before her. She finished all of her training a month before on the same week that I finished all of my. I started a month before her, and my AIT and my basic took the same amount of time as her basic and AIT, only a month longer. So we finished the same week, even though she started like several weeks after me. And she flew to Fort Sill. We got married. Young, dumb, stupid. And then after we got married, she went home on our honeymoon. And I went to jump school for my honeymoon. And I finished jump school. I had walking pneumonia through the last 3/4 of AIT and jump school. It took I was running, and I was a runner. I had a scholarship to college for cross country and track for distance running.
I'm just riding.
And I was pretty good. I was running sub 5-minute miles as a freshman sophomore, in the 80s, which was unheard of for the most part. Now you got freshmen running, sub fives. Like there's something genetically weird about the crop of kids today. They're very retrograde, but very athletic. I feel that it's programmed into them. There's some sort of AI thing going on.
We've been
But yeah,
breeding.
yes, it's the breeding. So then I made it through basic and AIT, and I get to AIT. I had walking pneumonia, and I was setting what we call artillery calls it batteries, but it's what they call company level.
Mhm.
I was
Yeah.
setting company level and battalion level records for the PT test scores for the run. And with walking pneumonia. And then I'd finish PT and I'd start like heaving afterwards. I was like, and they're like, "Are you okay?" "I'm fine." And I got to jump school, and a black hat, which are the instructors for jump school, comes up and they're like, "Soldier, are you okay?" And I'm like, "I'm fine." He sent me to uh, sick call right after that, and they're like, "Well, you have an option. You have walking pneumonia. You can either recycle and go back through from start to finish on jump school, because this is near the end of jump school, which is almost a month long, or you could just finish with walking pneumonia." And I'm like, "I'll finish." I'll, you know,
People don't understand. Like you're like, I don't want to do all this training all over again.
mm-mm.
I can push through. You can push through a month of being sick very easily.
Oh yeah, for sure. And it was ingrained in me because I finished 6th grade and went from the end of 6th grade. I'm not even making this up. To the day I graduated, I did not miss a single day of school. I went sick. All because our junior high principal gave us a day off from school for every semester we went without missing a day of school. I just did it to have a day off in the middle of the school year twice a year, just to say I could do it. I know that will come as a shock to all of you that know me. But so yeah, I'm like, "No, I'll finish it." And what people don't understand, and you know this, Skipper, because they offered you jump school. All military jump school goes to Fort Benning.
Yep.
The Army trains everybody that jumps out of airplanes. Everybody, whether
Yep.
it's um, standard jump school or special operations jump school, everybody gets the same training, and it all starts at Fort Benning with standard jump school. And they treat you like absolute dog crap. Like there's no, "Oh, you're brand new to the military, or you've been in for 5 to 10 years." If you're going to jump school, it's like going back through basic training. The black hats, and they love people that have been in for 5 to 10 years.
That's when I got to OCS. I was probably about 8 hours in. I'm thinking to myself, this is just like boot camp. Why the hell did I volunteer for this crap again?
No kidding, right? So, uh, so I made it through jump school with walking pneumonia, went home on leave, got my first permanent duty assignment to Germany. Now I went from like airborne, to being attached to a unit in Germany. And the day I got to Germany, my then brand new wife comes up and finds me in the mess hall at reception at Rhein-Main Air Force Base. And I'm like, wow, I haven't seen her for over a month. This is going to be great. And she goes, let's go for a walk. I'm like, yes, let's go for a walk. And she'll go sit down in this really nice park in front of this really nice hotel on Rhein-Main Air Force Base. And if you know anything about the Air Force, all their accommodations are great. And then they have these hotels that is like going to like a 5-star freaking hotel, And I'm sitting on this bench. I'm like, this is wonderful. She's going to surprise me. We've got a room for the night. And she looks at me and she goes, I don't know if I want to be married.
That's
I'm
the
like,
way it works.
I'm like, the fuck you say? I'm like, oh no. Oh no, 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 no. No, 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 no. No, I'm not. Nope. Nope. So yeah, that's how I started my military career. I went through shit to shit. That's what so I mean, and don't get me wrong, I'm glad that ended but I suffered through that for 3.5 years. 3.5 years, all for better housing accommodations. That's what it was. I lived in the German economy. I because we got married, I did not have to live on base housing. We
And just think, now today, all the soldiers, the males, can marry each other and just say, hey, let's just move out of the barracks.
boy, there's so much to that. Yeah.
It's happening. I'm telling you, it is happening.
I know it. I'm
They're
sure
not
it is.
gay,
And they're not
but
gay.
they're getting married.
They're just getting married, and then you get all the benefits of it too. So you get like the
Right.
BAQ and all of that. So, yeah, I'm like, you can do whatever you want. We're not getting a divorce, but I am not living in them freaking barracks. And because back then, even with the single soldier initiative, which was also across all the military, that they were starting to treat the barracks more like dorm rooms than just barracks life. I'm like, I want to live someplace decent, and we end up getting an apartment on the German economy. We were the only Americans in this little town of outside. It was part of Frankfurt, Germany, but it was way away from the rest of the military housing. And so I literally lived in and amongst the German people. I was speaking German in like 4 weeks because of my language aptitude.
I never thought German was that hard. Like,
No,
I
you
don't
just
speak
have to
German.
do a lot of and then every once in a while throw out a Sig Heil, and it was okay.
I've been to both Switzerland, Germany. I've traveled. I've literally taken the train through the country. Find it very easy to get around, and figure things out. Most everyone speaks English if you need to, but once you kind of understand, oh, this is what this means, and then if you add this on to the end of it, it means this. So I found it very easy to communicate and just like without knowing anything about the language. Once I kind of learned, okay, that's what that means. So that means this means this. It's very logical.
Yeah, it's a when you approach language, it's so funny. If you approach language the way that most people don't approach language, which is with fear and trepidation, if you approach it with understanding, it's very easy to understand languages and what they mean. So, or what they're trying to communicate, just with similarity, which is what makes Americans, if we weren't lazy as a culture in America, and like we have people that are hardworking, but we're predominantly pretty freaking lazy. Um, and we don't want to have to learn any language other than English. But if you know anything about English, and American English in particular, it's bastardized. It's a combination of the Latin languages, the Germanic languages, and the anglicized languages. And so it's actually really easy to learn other languages because of what we already know in American English.
I've been told Dutch is the closest to English, so people who study Dutch find it very easy.
Very easy. Well, which is really funny, which is why if you ever listen to somebody speak in Afrikaans, which is South Africans' dialect of Dutch, you'll find yourself being able to understand them even if you don't understand a word that they're saying, because Afrikaans is like that. So,
I do have a couple
oh
friends who
gosh,
speak
we're nerding
Afrikaans.
out. This is not what you brought me on for.
Well, what's funny is I have sometimes with the South Africans, I have a harder time understanding their English because they just have an accent where their words. Like I remember I was golfing with a guy and he was like, "Oh, they sell bulls there," and I was like, "Bulls? Like a cow in a bowl?" And he's like, "No, bulls." I'm like a bowl for like cooking, and he's like, "No, bulls, golf bulls." I was like, "Oh, okay, balls, got it." But it took me way longer than even the Scottish people.
Yeah, so I loved living on the German economy. I really did. It was it's really how I learned. And for those that have been around, and I'm trying to not treat everybody like they know me really well, but if you've been around when we've done, cooking with TC, um, it's how I learned how to cook based on what's available, because that's really a huge part of, I guess, for lack of better terminology, is a huge part of European culture is cooking with what's available, and Americans today do not understand that, because you can go to the store. It's like you go to the restaurant and you see something on the menu, right? You're like, fruit bowl with seasonally available fruits. Well, there's no such thing in the United States as seasonally available fruits anymore, because we have environments and we have regions of the U.S. now, California in particular, that specialize in growing fruits year round. That's why you can go to the
Especially
grocery
San
store,
Francisco.
if you know what I mean. But when you look at like lemons, and the variety of lemons and the variety of limes and the variety of melons and all of that, they're always in the store. They're constantly, even if you live in Minnesota, they're constantly able to get all these different fruits and vegetables and lemons, which outside of like the last 15 or 20 years, actually maybe a little further back than that, that's relatively new, because there was a time when you could go to the store and you couldn't find cherries, you couldn't really easily find lemons or limes. You had to use the processed, juices and
Canning.
whatnot, and canning. And now, because of the way that these things work, people can just go in and they can buy everything they need for whatever recipe they like at any time. And in Germany, when I was living there, it's where I first shopped at an Aldi, by the way. Because Aldi is like considered a very high-end grocers market in Germany.
But they say it like Audi.
Aldi, yeah. They like, I learned how to cook from what was available in the market, and so you'd go one place and get this, and you'd go to another place and get this, and so you'd go to a butcher, and you'd go to a baker, and you'd go to a produce market, and that's where I learned to pick what I was going to make based on what was available that day, and it grew from there. And so Germany was actually a lot of fun for me for that respect, and that and the beer was so good. It's why I'm a beer snob today. I will not drink American. The closest I'll get to actually drinking American macro brew beers is when I'm really sticking hard to being low carb. I'll drink Ultra, Michelob Ultra. But other than that, it's very hard to impress me with any beer in the U.S. at all. Very hard, because I cut my teeth on German beers.
If people who haven't been to Germany don't know that every little town has its own brew. So as you travel, you're trying different beers if you're a beer drinker.
And that's where I fell in love with the Weizens and Hefeweizens and Crystal Weizens. And so you walk into a place and you go, "Do you have any Weizen?" And they're like, "Well, what's that?" And I'm like, "Wheat beers." "Oh, we have a wheat beer." And you try it and you're like, like, "What is that?" So I fell in love with that in Germany. and came back to the States, and life was completely different for me. It was very, very weird for me when we came back, and I ended up at Fort Bragg with the 82nd Airborne, and the only place that I could, it's strangely enough, the only place that I could go to get any of the stuff that I enjoyed was the Army Air Force Exchange Class 6, which is what was, yes, Minecraft, yeah. Um, which was where the only place I could get any traditional German Weizens, Hefeweizens, Crystal Weizens, and it was also the only place you could get one of my favorites, which is an apple liqueur called Apfelkorn. And it was really hard for me to come back to the States. And I love the U.S. I love our country. I love the way I love the way we live. I love how big we are. I love how we're very different from region to region. And even within every state, there's, regions of each state are different from the next. Like you talk to somebody from central Illinois and they don't want to have anything at all to do with Cook County, no, or Gary, Indiana, it's, and that's, so I love the US, but there are things about European life that I absolutely miss. And that's, one of them. And so that's why I shop and cook the way that I do today, for those of you that have ever been around for TC cooking with TC. So, yeah. So I got out of the military and settled down in Minnesota, and I stopped on my way back to Montana, which was my goal. I left Fort Bragg. I was going to drive back to Montana, and I stopped in southeast Minnesota. I was going to spend a few weeks with my parents, and I ended up staying because my dad had graduated from college and I didn't, and I owed him a steak dinner. That son of a bitch.
And now we're sending you to the butter knife steak.
Yeah, you better come up with some money for that, because I do not have, wherever that place is, I've never heard of it, but you give me all the money. I'm not going to do a per diem. You have to pay for it all ahead of time.
We have a $50 expense.
If you want me to go do the butter knife steak challenge, whatever that is, you can cash at me at MBRR Media, $sign MBRR. So.
Hey folks, we might have to do that. We might, and if we do,
I'll freaking do it. But everybody's got to pitch in for it. I will save that money for that. I will actually go and do it, and then I will come away and tell you why my food's better.
And we want a video. If we do that, we want a video.
I'm 100% down with that. I'm not afraid to be on camera.
So, and then. What got you into being a corrections officer?
Happenstance. So, I had been working for I worked at TGI Fridays for a while, and I got tired of being in the food service, mostly because the Fridays I worked at was a franchise. And so we had the same menu as all the other Fridays in the US, but as a franchise, we also had the ability to do everything from scratch. And then TGI Fridays corporate started to tell the franchises, you have to do everything exactly the way all the other Fridays do. And so everything by pre-made. Alfredo had to be pre-made, the ribs had to be pre-cooked, and so I was the store steward as well as the senior line chef. So I had a crew that worked under me. I had a brigade that worked under me, and I also did all the ordering for the store. And that's what the restaurants are called, stores individually. They have store numbers, they don't have restaurant numbers. So I did all of the ordering, and the orders came down from on high, and you can be starving. No, you cannot. Not at our prices these days. It's take that much in gas just to get me to the grocery store.
Right. I don't
but the
think that'll
order
get you much at McDonald's.
no, even the dollar menu won't get you that much. So the orders came down on high, and that we had to start ordering everything pre-made. And one of the things I prided myself on there was like making Alfredo and sauces and whatnot from scratch. And I'm like, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. So I left and ended up going to work for a pet store because I was really into fish and birds and whatnot. And I had snakes, so I was kind of a snake guy. I loved. I had Burmese pythons. I had ball pythons, and I had Colombian boas and whatnot. And so I'm like, this will be fun. Do something, manage in a pet store for a while, and it just wasn't cutting it. So I went to work. One of my regular customers was a assistant manager at a Menards, which is kind of you'll be more
Minnesota Home
familiar.
Depot.
Well, no, Wisconsin, but they're growing. They're starting to spread out all over. And I went
You
to
can
work
save
there.
big
He's
money.
like, at Menards, and if you've ever heard the ads, it sounds like it says you can save big monkeys at Menards. So I did that. I went. He kind of headhunted me, and I went to work in their millwork department, which at the time was also dealt with cabinetry and appliances. And they asked me to become the manager of the cabinetry and appliance department. So I was doing high-end kitchen designs and selling appliances and packages and whatnot. And then I got headhunted to a higher end studio, and customer came in and he said, "Hey, I love the work that you do. I've seen your portfolio. Would you like to come to work for us?" And that was right in 2007. And if you were paying attention, 2007 was the beginning of the end of the housing market bubble and the dot-com bubble. And I went to work at this really nice studio, and then the housing market took a dump. And Rochester, Minnesota is home of the Mayo Clinic. If you don't know what the Mayo Clinic is, I don't know where you've been, but it's supposed to be the best in the world. We dodged a bullet for a little while when the housing market took a dump in the Rochester area in southeast Minnesota, but we didn't dodge it completely, and the studio started to take a dive. And I was the newest person, so I got laid off first. And I went back to work for the pet store I was working at, and they hired me on as their general manager. And my brother comes up to me one day, and he had been a deputy for a while, and he's like, "Hey, man, you should apply at the Olmsted County Sheriff's Office." I'm like, "Dude, I didn't go to school for this." And he goes, "That's okay. They'll hire anybody. They'll hire any old schmuck." And I'm like, "Thanks a lot." And they did. They hired any old schmuck. But the market, the jobs market was so bad when I took the test in January of 2008. I was one of over 290 people applying for or testing for 5 positions. Hear that again. One of 290 plus people applying for 5 positions. So by the time I finished the MMPR, Minnesota Multiphasic, okay, so boy, there's so much to it. Minnesota Multiphasic Personality something. I don't remember. It's basically a psychological test where they ask you the same question about 75 different times in a different way. And your consistency determines whether or not you're insane or not, I guess. I don't know. Clearly, I was insane enough to get hired, but I made it through that.
They were just giving you a Scientology Dianetics test.
Right. No kidding, right? I want to go clear.
If you've ever heard of the questions in those, they're pretty crazy. Have you ever laid waste to a town?
What?
That's one of their questions.
No, I'm Noah, but I'd be like, I'm the guy that look at it and go, "I'm laying waste to a town right now. What are you talking about?" So I
I'd
scored
be
high
like,
enough.
no, but I did destroy a bathroom at Chili's.
I've never been to Chili's, by the way. Um,
You've
so
been to TGI Fridays, so you've been to Chili's. It's the same thing,
touche and Applebee's, right?
right?
So I did that, scored high enough on that test, scored high enough on the physical test. Shout out to Sam, who gave me a pass on one of my push-ups that she shouldn't have. But I hate push-ups, by the way. I absolutely hate. They're the dumbest thing in the world. You got to do push-ups when you're in the military. Why? Because we got to test your physical fitness. If I'm ever in a position in the middle of combat where I need to drop down and do push-ups, it's probably too freaking late already. Just, I don't know. Like, at what position in the military are you ever going to need to do push-ups? I'm just, if it's that bad, I'm probably just going to go ahead and let them shoot me in the face. So I got through that, got through the interview process, and the captain of operations for the detention center called me up and he says, "Great news. You are on the hiring list." I'm like, "Oh, that's wonderful. You want the job?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure, absolutely. It's full-time work. It's going to pay me more." And he goes, "Okay, we'll give you a call in about a year." I'm like, "But squeeze me? It's 2000. It's January of 2008. You want me to wait until 2009?" And he's like, "That's where we're at right now." Because the economy had taken such a dump that nobody was
Mhm.
leaving their jobs for any. If they had a decent paying job with benefits, they weren't leaving at all. There was nothing that was causing people to leave. And so they had openings, but they had to phase us in. And so I waited it out, and I'd call him every month and a half and check in. It was like, "Hey, Captain Adams, how's it looking?" He goes, "Nope, you're still on track. We got a hiring date for you of January." So in January of 2009, I got hired as a deputy, officially hired as a deputy. And that's a big difference between a lot of places. So in Minnesota, the only the only requirement by law for a sheriff's office, I'm not even kidding you, in Minnesota state statutes, the only requirement for a sheriff's office is to provide detention services. They do not have to provide any law enforcement services at all.
Mhm.
They have to provide a jail because there is no such thing as a city jail in the state of Minnesota. So when you hear people talk about jails, the police department jail, most places don't actually have the police department doesn't have a jail. It's almost all on their county. In Minnesota, that's law. And so if you have a county
Didn't
that doesn't have a detention center, they have to contract that out to other counties.
didn't, Dillinger escape from a jail in Minnesota?
I don't know if he escaped from a jail in Minnesota, but
I
Dillinger did have some run-ins up here.
I do know he escaped from a jail in Lima, Ohio,
Yeah.
and I know I wanna say he was almost captured in northern Wisconsin.
Well,
He
he
was
had some
hiding.
run-ins. He had a hideout and some run-ins here in Minnesota. Actually, not too far from where I live. In
Mm.
reality, the Dalton gang got gunned down in Northfield, Minnesota. If you don't know anything about the Dalton gangs after the American War of Northern Aggression, um, but the Dalton gang, I think 98% positive it was the Dalton gang in North. They went to rob a bank, and that did not end well for them. So,
Something
back
like
where
4 of 5 died.
back when men were men and the goats were afraid of them.
And the
So
one that survived was pretty well shot up.
yeah, it was not good for them. So yeah, I happened to go to work for the third largest metro area in the state of Minnesota, in the sheriff's office there as a sworn deputy. Uh, that's as deputies, and they don't call us correctional officers; they call us, deputies. Correctional officers work at the state level in the state Department of Corrections, and so I happened into it. It wasn't a career that I chose. Um, it wasn't an easy job by any stretch of the imagination, but it was an eye-opening job. it helped me expose some raw philosophical perspectives. No, yeah, there it is, Joan Walton, the James Gang. Yeah, the Jesse James Gang, not the Daltons. The Jesse James Gang. I remember that now. Thank you, Joan, for that. It helped me see a lot of what I had been seeing for years, in that the system is broken. And
Mhm.
it was very telling to me. Like, within about 6 months of starting the career, I started to ask questions like, look, don't get me wrong, if you're going to have kids, you should probably take care of them. So if you're going to have kids with multiple people, or even one person, but you're not going to pay to support your children, you're scum of the earth. But why is this criminal? And because what I saw Minnesota doing early in my career in the law enforcement community, I started to see people getting locked up for not paying their child support.
The only type of debtor's prison that we actually have in the United States.
Yeah, pretty much. And it really rubbed me the wrong way, because I was seeing guys and gals, by the way, and I've had this argument with some people recently. Minnesota higher rate than they ever did, as just for child support. But I was seeing people get locked up who had no criminal history at all. None. No criminal history. Had no DUIs, no drug possession, no, domestic assault, none of that. You think of no PDF files or anything. People getting locked up 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 months on civil charges, because that's what in Minnesota, not paying your court ordered child support is a civil charge. A civil charge. It is not a criminal charge. But they allow the criminal courts, or the criminal charge, and lock you up for not paying your child support. And people were losing their income, losing their homes, losing their driver's license, because that's one of the first things that they do is they take your driver's license away from you if you don't pay your child support. And then all of a sudden this guy gets their license yanked from them because they're behind on their child support, and then they get pulled over, and then they got a warrant out for their arrest for their child support. Oh, and they also don't have their driver's license. So now we're going to throw you in jail. And the thing that really blew my mind was there was a guy, Marcus McGowan. I think you could probably look him up right now, Skipper. But he had lived in the Rochester area. So he lived in Olmsted County. And his wife divorced him, and she got him. He was an importer exporter. Kind of, there's some questions about what he really did, but he had a legit business where he was importing and exporting collectors type things. And his wife divorced him and got a massive monthly settlement for child support. And his daughter would come to spend the weekends with him, and she would show up in the rattiest, dirtiest, most ripped up, torn up clothes. And he goes, I'm paying thousands of dollars a month to your mom. And she goes, I know, but she's buying her boyfriend's cars. She's buying them clothes. She's paying their rent. She's doing this and that. And I don't get anything. And so he said, I'm not paying her anymore. I will take you out. I will buy you clothes for here. I will pay for your school supplies. I'll do all of that. And he kept receipts. And then he ended up moving his business to Florida. And he lived in Florida. And I'm not making this up. He got news that he knew he had warrants. And he finally got news that his mom was dying, and he wanted to come see his mom before she passed away. She was on her deathbed. And he came back to Minnesota from Florida. And this pisses me off. Even talking about it makes me sad, and it makes me angry. His ex-wife knew he was in town. She called the county sheriff because if you don't know anything about how warrants work, the sheriff and the sheriff's office and his staff are normally responsible for executing warrants. She knew he had a warrant for child support, thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, that he had receipts to show that he had actually spent the money on his daughter and not gave it to her. She called the sheriff's office, said, "Hey, I know where Marcus McGowan is. He's got all these warrants for not paying me child support." And they showed up. And you know what they did? "I'm sorry, I don't want to do this, but it's my job. I'm just following orders. I know this is messed up." And they arrested him instead of letting him spend time with his mom when she was dying, and threw him in jail. And I had conversations with the guy, and he wasn't the greatest guy in the world. He wasn't the nicest guy in the world. And I don't blame him for being angry, but he was getting screwed over by a system. And the people that I worked with every day were like, "Hey, this is the way it is. This is just our job. We just have to do what we're told to do." And that's where the scales really kind of like fell off my eyes in that moment. Like, I'm working for a corrupt system. They don't care whose lives they screw over. As long as they protect their pension, and as long as they have a job, they'll do whatever they're told to do.
And there's a guy I follow on X, Cynical Publius is his name, and he had a tweet that he put out today, and he said the problem with changing the government is the people who have screwed everything up would be the ones in charge of the reform.
Yep.
And that is absolutely true. That's why it's so hard. And this actually speaks to me because I've always paid. I have to pay child support. I make more money than my ex, so I've always had to pay, which is fine. It's. I don't look at it as money for me. It's money for my son. So I don't look at it as she's getting it. But the problem is when I went to buy this house, they were. I'm doing all the paperwork and everything, and when the child support order was made in the minute order, she had filed in December. The child support was our court hearing was in March, and he said, "Okay, I am gonna create. We're gonna do it, and we're gonna backdate it to December. So there's an arrears." Um, you know, he's making it that day, but all of a sudden now, just by him saying it, I'm now 3 months behind. And he said, but I'm going to put the order that you have to pay this amount. And then I think it was like 20% more until it's all caught up. Well, I don't like debts. So by May 1st, I was all caught up. I had paid her all that arrears, and I've never not paid the child support. I've always paid my child support because that's what I have to do. And when that was 2018 and 2019. Now fast forward to 2022, 2023, I'm buying a house, or 2023, I'm buying a house, and they said, "Well, your divorce order says you're in an arrears." I'm like, "No, it doesn't. It says that the judge created an arrears." I'm like, "I've paid my child support." And he's like, "Well, we need something from the state stating that you're good." They have the state child support board. And the thing is, if you don't have an open case, this involving the state is if you're not paying, you get ordered to pay the state.
Yep.
And the thing is, if you pay, you're never going to get ordered to the state. So I call the state. I'm like, "I just need to proof that I've never had to deal with you guys." And they're like, "We can't do that. But if you want to open an account with us," I'm like, "Why would I give you the money? It's never going to make it to my kid." Like,
Right.
I'm going to pay his mom so that way he benefits.
It's the
And
only way. It's the only way in Minnesota for people to avoid ending up in arrears is to literally have the money taken out of their check from their employer at direct deposit time, is to have it taken out and sent to the state, and then the state distributes it. And then they take their cut off of it because then they handle, because they're handling it, so they have to charge you for it. Yeah, and that's this guy, the county attorney of Olmsted County that was responsible for prosecuting non-criminal cases told Marcus, as long as I'm handling child support in Olmsted County, you will never get out of jail until you pay your arrears. And we're talking, it was like thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, even though he could produce that he had given that thousands of dollars directly to his daughter.
Mhm.
And he said, if I had it my way, you'd be sitting in state prison. But because it isn't a state level criminal charge, he could not go. So he was looking at spending the rest of his life locked up in a county detention center for a non-criminal charge. And eventually they got him out on constitutional grounds. Because
Wow.
he said, yeah, I've got the money. He said, I could pay this today. I could have paid this on the very first day and been out. But it's the principle.
Mhm.
And I learned a lot from that guy. Just in that sometimes it is worth suffering when you've done
Yeah.
nothing wrong. It is worth the suffering to make the point. And there are a lot of people in 2020 with COVID prove this. There are a lot of people that talk big how much they love liberty and how much they'll never succumb to it. But when push comes to shove, the vast majority of people, even conservatives, even Republicans, will kowtow to the state. They'll do what they're told to do because, sadly, most of them have been raised in a government indoctrination center that we call public schools to bow. Just do what I tell you to do because it's just going to go better for you. And I learned from Marcus that it is okay to say, nope, do what you're going to do, your worst. I'm not going to cave on my principles. And so if you're watching this and you don't know my story personally, or you've never heard this before, ask yourself, are you willing to be locked up? Are you willing to be thrown in a camp? Are you willing to lose your freedom for what you believe in? And don't answer very fast. Don't go, oh, absolutely, I'll stand my ground. Because they'll ask you, did you wear a mask during COVID? Did you take the jab? When your local grocery store told you had to follow the arrows and stay 6 feet apart, did you do that? Because I'm the guy who didn't wear a mask in public. I'm the guy who, when I walked into a grocery store and they made you take a cart, gallon of milk, and they counted the number of carts that were available, and if they didn't have enough carts and you had to wait for a cart, I'm the guy that walked right past them, and I walked intentionally against the arrows.
You know what's funny is this week is 7 years I've been doing this show. And, it's
And
changed quite a bit
congratulations.
over those years. Thank you. And you've been doing it with me, it'll be, I think, 5 years come September or October. But we had these discussions during COVID. We very quickly were
100%.
like, people talk about the Holocaust and, "Oh, how could that happen to turn in your neighbor?" And we were like, "Oh, you're seeing it right here,
Right now.
live in
Yep.
America." Yeah. And, and now those people are trying to act all high and mighty again. It's like, dude, I saw a woman today wearing a mask outdoors by herself. I'm like, some of you people are just
Oh,
freaking
it to no end. I don't know what to tell people when I see them these days, just because it's so mind-boggling stupid to me. Just like you got conditioned to this in less than a year.
right.
When you think about it, less than a year, and you
It
just stuck with it.
If you get COVID today, you're not dying. Like, you have to know how viruses work. Like, it is not going to kill you.
Virus and birds aren't real. No, it's mind-boggling to me, and to watch. And as I saw Stacy said, not here in Florida talking about some of the stuff, but Florida exposes another reality about COVID, that Florida shut down too. And to his credit, DeSantis said, no, we're not doing this after a while. And this is where I'm going to incite probably about 75% of your audience. Your hero, Donald Trump, threatened DeSantis with legal, like, law enforcement action. Like, if you're not going to keep your state locked down, I'm sending federal law enforcement down there to lock your state down. What the fuck, dude? You don't have that power. And he
Right.
threatened it because he thought if he threatened it, that DeSantis would, back down. And so once again, DeSantis isn't my idea of the best option for governance, but at least he had the spine to stand up to Trump. So, and that's what I learned during COVID, and that's like literally why, there again, for those that don't know, that's why I ended up outside of the law enforcement career field, was because in March of 2020, well, actually, well before, in January, I was telling people there's something coming for us, and I kind of knew it was going to be centered around COVID because there was some talk about this virus out of China, and it was starting to, break into other countries. And I started telling fellow staff, deputies at the detention center, I said, something big's coming for us. And so when they started shutting everything down, I gave everybody a roadmap of what was going to happen. This is what it's going to look like. Minnesota, California, and New York
they didn't.
state are all going to do the exact same things at the exact same times. And they came up to me by the end of March, and they were like, how the hell did you know this? I said, because I don't have my head in the sand. I'm actually paying attention to things that matter. Oh yeah, great. You could tell me all the stats about all the basketball teams and all the pro football teams and pro baseball, but you don't know anything about what's happening in the world. And I'm not just talking politics, I'm talking policy. And they were just shocked. How is this happening? I said, because you let it happen.
I want everyone to know they weren't coming after TC because they were trying to fire TC, and they weren't doing it because he was protesting. It wasn't because he wasn't following rules or anything like that. It was because he was on here and YouTube talking about what was right and what was wrong, and was telling people, here's what they're going to do to you.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing is, it's one of the things that I talked about behind the scenes with Skipper was I cannot talk about my work.
Mhm.
So if you go back to my very first day on YouTube with my channel and watch from April of 2020 all the way through November of 2021, I never once mentioned where I worked or what I did. Never once.
And just so you folks know, I have tried to encourage him to run for sheriff of Olmsted County, because that would just be,
Well, I don't
that
live
would
in
just
Olmsted County, so I don't.
that would just be sweet justice if you did and beat him.
But well, he's not running anymore. We've effectively ruined his career because we pointed out some stuff that he did protecting a deputy that was a pedophile.
Oh yeah, I remember that one.
Georgie said, like, who here refused Biden's jab? It wasn't Biden's jab, by the way. It's Trump's jab.
Yeah,
and
it was
the
developed
move
under Trump.
And the move to make it mandatory didn't start under Biden. It started under Trump. Trump's administration started the mandatory measures, and Biden just finalized it. So we need to offer legitimate criticism of everything that happened during COVID happened because Trump was willing to allow it to happen. Your states that got locked down because Trump declared a countrywide, a national emergency for COVID. And the second that he did that, that enabled all the states that did lock down, California, New York, Minnesota, Michigan, Wisconsin, you name them. It was Trump's declaration of a national emergency. It was Trump's use of the Defense Production Authorization Act that forced businesses that weren't normally focused on the production of personal protective equipment, that he threatened to use the Defense Production Act against businesses that wouldn't make masks. I know a lot of people here are Trump people. I voted for the guy twice, but he's not the conservative, liberty-loving bastion of freedom that everybody thinks he is. Everything that happened during COVID happened because Trump made it happen. So we have to the sooner we can acknowledge that, the sooner we can move forward as a country, and the sooner we can get people that think they're the left or think they're the right, that think that they're red, think that they're blue. The sooner we do that, the better off we all are. But too many people are wrapped up in this left versus right, red versus blue mentality.
Yeah,
And
but there were people on both sides so eager
absolutely.
to take away people's rights. There,
Oh, and
without
they
a doubt.
remain that way. They remain that way.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And I'm getting sidetracked, but yeah, Fauci was a bad guy, but Trump had the power to fire him, and he didn't. And then he pardoned him. So, I mean,
I don't think did Trump pardon Fauci? I thought that was
yeah,
Biden who pardoned him.
I-
It was Trump.
you might be right, but
I could be wrong too.
he could have fired him, and he didn't. He never he
Very
didn't.
true.
He refused to. Same with Burks. He could have fired Burks, who was the second most powerful person under Trump and Fauci at the time. And he didn't. He didn't fire these people. He knew everybody says he knew he was getting bad information, but okay, if he knew he was getting bad information, then why didn't he fire them?
Mm-hmm.
And so we have to ask ourselves whether you're a Trump Republican or whether you're a Republican or you're a Democrat, ask yourselves why all of this stuff takes place. Why? And okay, so we're being told the reality is that there's no such thing for the most part of an outsider, because when you're an outsider, you end up like me. You end up getting attacked by the system. And they spent literally, guys, I'm just this little channel. I'm a tiny little channel, a tiny little voice. I'm unimportant. And yet my agency that I worked for, that I was 100% committed to doing good work for, I had excellent ratings as a deputy, came after me for not walking in lockstep with the regimist mentality. And it's not just me, because there are voices out there. I'm sorry, some of you may or may not like, some of you may not like him, but the most liberty-loving person in the entire United States Congress is Thomas Massey. That man is so consistently on point and on principle, but look what they did to him. Well, Georgie, it's a fair question. If I was so terrible, why did I vote for him? Because I bought into the lie that you have to vote for the lesser of two evils. It's a lie. You don't have to vote for the lesser of two evils, because all that ends up happening, and there again, I learned this during the fight for my career, was if you vote for the lesser of two evils, the only thing you're doing is voting for slow evil. And so I did hold my nose the last two times that I voted for him. And I said, I can't stand Kamala. Okay, great. Nobody could stand Kamala.
Mm-hmm.
Kamala was a train wreck. Great. 100% agree with that.
Going to be worse in the next election. Whether it's, I don't know who's going to run, but you're seeing with the Democrats, they're going to grab a Democrat socialist. The writing is already on the wall, and it's going to be someone who's even worse than Kamala Harris. Now, that doesn't mean the Republican is going to be any better. That doesn't mean they're going to be better than Trump.
If you look at the current crop of Republicans that they're offering, they're just leftists with red behind a red R behind their name.
Some are, absolutely. So it's just going to be easier for the Republican to win. That's it. That's the only thing that's going to happen. And I have no problem making that prediction.
Yeah, well, I heard you yesterday talk about the red, the blue wave that's coming. Yeah, the midterms. I don't think that I don't do Polymarket, and I don't do, what's the other one? Kalshi. Kalshi. I probably should, because so far everything I predicted has been right. But I don't.
I made a lot of money off COVID. I will say that. You and me talking, I that's when I first really started getting serious in investing, and it was a big jump that happened for me then. And yeah, I've done very well investing, but a lot of it was because you and me looking at things and saying, "Okay, we can see what's going to happen next."
Yeah, and that's that detachment from being left versus right, red versus blue, and actually asking yourself what's going on here is the big thing. And it the struggle that I think people have is we've been and there again, this happened to me during the fight for my career is we've been sold this idea that you can only vote Republican, you can only for those two, then you're just wasting your vote. And I'm like, I'd rather waste my vote.
I've voted for
And
Democrats before. Like, for me, like there are some Republicans out there I will not ever vote for.
oh,
There are.
well, somebody Cinder said Rubio going to be the next red prez. If Rubio's the only option and the Libertarian National Party can't put up a candidate that isn't just a complete crackpot, I'll vote Democrat against Rubio. I despise that man. I absolutely despise him. He's a piece of shit. Rubio is an absolute piece of shit. He's worse than what's his face out of Texas. I can't think of him right now.
Paxton,
No,
Cornyn.
no, the senator.
Oh, uh, I, I, the
the
Zodiac killer.
the white Hispanic guy.
You know what's funny is the co-owner of this show is a guy named Ryan, and Ryan used to be a lot more politically involved. In fact, I don't want to fully
It
out
doesn't
him, but
surprise me knowing Ryan.
I don't want to fully out him, but he was on social media on a platform that was very instrumental in getting Trump to run back in 2015, 2016. And he was in the meetings were the ones who created the Ted Cruz is the
Yeah, Ted
Zodiac
Cruz. That's it.
killer.
That's it. Ted Cruz.
Yeah.
Ted Cruz. Yeah,
They,
Ted Cruz.
they created the Ted Cruz is the Zodiac killer meme. And had a plan to get this out there before one of the debates, and he still says, "Oh yeah, I'm incredibly proud of that." And he's not as active as what he was then, but he was very active. He actually, here's one thing you probably don't know about him. In addition to owning this show and being one of the ones to push me to do this show, he was at one time on the cover of the New York Times, and he was
I thought you were
told
going to say Playgirl, but
no, he was called by a CEO of a guy that if I said his name, everyone would know him. He was called personally by a CEO of a very large social media company and said, "If you ever open an account on my platform again, I will sue you to oblivion." That
well,
is getting
there's that.
canceled.
That's canceled. Yeah. And
And what's
and
funny
so
is we know this is true. We know that there's still private investigators who research what his IP address is, so that if that IP ever pings up on that social media platform, yeah, he's going to be sued.
and so like with all of this, so I wouldn't mind Georgie said I wouldn't mind a Vance DeSantis on the ballot. I wouldn't. I'll never vote for Vance because I know everything there is to know about that man from behind the scenes. Vance is a CIA plant. He's 100% he's a deep stater. Vance is 100% a deep stater. He was created by the CIA. He went from obscure, nothing, no offense to the Marines because Army, Air Force, and Space Force the same way. But I mean, he went from an obscure nothing. I mean, I'm supposed to believe that J.D. Vance had time to write a best-selling, massive novel about a biopic novel about his life in the as a hillbilly, while he was also attending Harvard or Yale. Yale was it Harvard or Yale? My brain's freezing right now.
I think it was Harvard.
Harvard. Harvard. While he's attending law school at Harvard, tell me you don't know anything about Harvard Law School when you think a guy's got the time to do Harvard Law School and write a novel. Are you kidding me? And then you listen to him talk, and he ain't that smart. He's just not. He's just not that smart. He's what my friend Monica Perez from Deep Dives with Monica calls a created person, just like this Adam Schwarzy that I've been covering for the last year. Just plucked out of nowhere from obscurity, sent off to all of these high-end schools that all get paid for, and pushed through all of these places to go be a controlled asset in government. Vivek Ramaswamy, same thing. Just comes out of nowhere. All of a sudden, he's a massive millionaire. Now he's a darling of the Republicans. Elon Musk, hardcore leftist until he met Trump, and then he became now he's being called a Nazi. Handpicked to be successful. And these are the things that make me incredibly unpopular with the left and the right, because I'm saying, y'all getting played. You're all played. You're all getting played. You're 100% getting played. And I saw this during COVID. In Minnesota's a proving ground for the reality of that, in that I've got people up here who talk about, I'm never going to fall for anything like that again. And yet they complied with every single thing that was required of them during the COVID measures until their kids' lives were challenged because they couldn't compete in football, or they couldn't compete in wrestling, or they couldn't compete in their senior year of basketball. And then they stood up to the government and said, you let our kid, literally we had a movement called Let Our Kids Play in Minnesota, because all these sporting events in their senior years were getting shut down, and their lives were being ruined by not being able to take part in football and basketball and wrestling and volleyball and underwater basket weaving for morons. And they got together and they united, and they went to all the rallies and all the events, and then they got the state to back off and let kids play. And once they got the kids able to play, then they packed up and went home and complied with all of the mandates. They wore their masks and they stayed home and they got the jab, and on and on and on. And so it's this, we're constantly being manipulated by the system. The Dems and the Republicans are all in on it together, 100% in on it together. And the sooner everybody wakes up to that and stops voting for Dems and Republicans and starts voting like, Heroes Chris is here. We need a system of politics in the U.S. that's more like Thailand. So, I mean, until I see people beating the crap out of each other in Congress, I don't believe them. I just don't believe them. I don't believe that you give a damn about the people until you're beating the crap out of one another. And that used to happen in our Congress, folks. Leading up to the Civil War, there were people fighting each other on the floor of Congress. They're getting beat the crap out of each other over political issues in Congress.
Betty
You know what
Stevens, he took his cane to another congressman.
Yeah, that's dedication. That's 100% dedication. No, Skipper could never be president because he would speak too much truth, and they'd off him. Legitimately off him, not like fake off, try to off him. So, that's the thing, is the reality is that we have to unplug from the two-party system, and we have to start addressing the reality of what's actually happening around us. And you have to be willing to suffer for it. And when I say you have to be willing to suffer for it, I don't mean that you might be a little uncomfortable. Okay. I mean, go ahead, Skip.
I just want to add on to that. If you want to start seeing changes, you got to start going to your local boards, your local city council, your town board, your school board. You have to start doing it because guess where those big leaders come from? They start there. And if you see someone who is not a good person, you need to focus at that level. Uh, keep good people in at your local boards because that's the only way it's going to happen. I had a friend of mine who was very, very active here, and she called me the one day and was like, "Hey, did you talk to this guy who's running for city council?" I was like, "Yeah, we briefly DM'd. I haven't met him in person yet." And she was like, "I'm just going to tell you, he was the rudest person I have ever." And she's like, "I've met people way higher, um, at way higher positions." And that guy did win, and then first chance he got was trying to move up to the state legislature. That is exactly how it works. So you have to do it at your local level.
And that's and you know that I have an entire theme of some of what I do on my channel is think local, act local. Is like there's nobody that has more power over your life than your city council, your
Mhm.
mayor, your county commission, but more importantly, your school board. Your school board has more power over your life than anybody else. But they've convinced us that we have to worry about what happens at our state capitol more than anything else. And then above the state capitol, you have to worry about who's president and who's in your Congress and your Senate at the federal level. And the biggest problem with that is that the vast majority of power for taxation happens at the school district level. Your school district can determine what your property is worth because your school district communicates to the county board
Mhm.
who uses the county assessor's office, and they can say we really need to generate more revenue and the people aren't voting in favor of our school referendum, so we have to find a way to up the amount of money we're making. So they talk to the county commissioners and the county assessor and they say we need to do something about property values, and they raise property taxes. And they raise property taxes by assessing that your property, even though you only paid $110,000, and granted, California would be a lot higher, but you only paid $110,000 for your house and your entire property. But we're going to determine that your house is actually worth, and your property is worth $220,000. And so
The
now your property taxes have you underwater for a property that you couldn't sell for $220,000, but they're getting the revenue out of it. And that's where you have to start working. You have to start paying attention. I don't give a flip about who's president. If we stopped investing power in them, they wouldn't have power. But we're so busy worrying about who we need to blow up in the world and giving the person the power to blow those people up that you're not looking at who's actually blowing up your community. And right now, the people blowing up your community are your school boards, your county commission, and your city councils. And they're doing crap behind your back, like signing non-disclosure agreements to bring data centers in. And, Skipper's 100% right. If the data center is willing to drill their own wells and not use potable water, fine. But ask yourself, why are not school boards, why are mayors and county commissions and city administrators signing non-disclosure agreements, which completely violate sunshine laws?
Yep. Yep. That's exactly what's happened in my parents' area where a data center's going in. They're claiming that they signed NDAs. And it's like, doesn't
That's
matter.
against the law. It's
Yeah,
literally against the
exactly.
law. And ask yourselves why. Because the cities and the counties and the school boards are getting kickbacks for it. Where it matters, like I don't care if AOC is president. If we've got the emphasis on what matters, you're going to be at your city council meetings. When's the last time one of you went to a city council meeting? When's the last time one of you went to a county board meeting or a school board meeting and raised hell over something that they're doing? And I mean it, raise hell. Asking questions. And that's what got me in trouble. I asked questions at the state level and at the local level. I mean, one of the accusations against me, and I'm not kidding, Skipper, this will blow your mind. And you know this, but for the audience, one of the accusations that was brought against me in the termination hearing when they were trying to fire me, which by the way, they never did fire me. They tried to fire me for my YouTube content and accused me of breaking the law. And one of the things that they accused me of breaking was violating a direct order. The direct order was the governor's the governor's mask mandates and the stay-at-home orders, which, if you know anything about executive orders, they don't apply to anybody but the executive branch of any government.
Yep.
The governor cannot sign an executive order ordering you to stay home. The governor can't do that. He doesn't have the power. The mayor doesn't have the power to order you to stay home. The president doesn't have the power to order you around in your daily life. But they were treating the governor's executive order to wear a mask and stay home like, because I worked for the sheriff's office, I had to obey that. And they literally tried to accuse me of violating the law for that. And I said, you can't do that. It's not how it works. And that's what we need more people to do. Stop falling into the red versus blue arguments, the Democrats versus the Republicans, the Christians versus the Muslims, the Jewish people versus the Christians, or the Zionists versus non-Zionists. And yeah, I offer a lot of critiques about Israel. I offer a lot of critiques about Zionism, but I'm offering those from the perspective of it's all being used against us. And it's the same thing. I'm all for people opposing data centers right now. I'm all for it, but I'm opposing data centers not because they're, again, 100% with Skipper on this. If they're willing to pay for all their own utilities, if they're willing to pay for drilling their own wells to run non-potable water for their cooling, I'm 100%. I have no problem with data centers on that level. What people aren't paying attention to is what the data centers are being used for. It's not so that you can make a song on Suno. That's not what the data centers are being used for. Data centers are not being used so you can create an image to make a meme. That's not what they're being used for. The data centers are being used for surveillance. And we already have 10 times more data centers in the United States than the top other 9 countries in the world. 10 times more than the top 9 countries. That includes China. Now let's ask ourselves, what does China use its data centers for? And Skipper knows this already. Mass surveillance of the people. Data centers are being used in China to mass surveil their people. And when you're paying attention, Donald Trump has already said, you can't fight the data centers, so just get on board. Stop fighting the data centers. They're coming whether you want them or not. And that's because the Republican Party and the Democrats are all 100% in favor of the data centers, because the data centers are being used to power Flock and Axon and other surveillance systems that are all part of Palantir. All of this is being used to put all of these surveillance systems in place. And the only reason these surveillance systems are being used is for social credit scores. And now the current administration, if you don't want me to use the name of the current administration is already using the Department of Justice and the Department of Homeland Security. If you oppose data centers, and I know Skipper knows this because I believe I heard you mention this, if you oppose data centers, you've already been placed on a list as a potential domestic terrorist. Why? Because even though the data centers are owned privately, they're contracting with the federal government and with state and local governments to provide surveillance data to them without having to use a warrant. So they volunteer to provide the surveillance data to the government, and therefore there doesn't have to be a warrant.
The government, actually, like the NSA, you find is a minority owner in a lot of this stuff.
100%.
There's a reason why Signal is allowed to be used by the U.S. military. It's because the NSA owns it.
100%. And while I oppose Flock, the arguments against Flock are not organic. The arguments against Flock are because the vast majority of the people, including Donald Trump and Republicans and Democrats in Congress, own stock in a little tiny company called Axon. And if you know anything about Axon, it's the company that provides tasers and body cams for law enforcement agencies in the United States, predominantly the largest provider of body cams and tasers for law enforcement agencies. But guess what else? They provide surveillance video and images for those law enforcement agencies. Conspiracy kitty. And where's this hat? Where's this hat?
I think I got it down here.
And so when we look at whether it's Republicans versus Democrat, we have to ask ourselves, it's Republicans and Democrats versus us. And that's what got me in trouble. That's what ended up causing me to lose a career that I lost, was because I asked these kinds of questions and I pointed it out. And you're just not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to question the Democrats. You're not allowed to question the Republicans. You're not allowed to say things. And, Georgie and I argue about this all the time. I'm not worried about Muslims. Islam doesn't bother me because they're not the problem. Those countries that are being overrun by Islam are being overrun by Islam because their leaders want it to be overrun, because they can use it as a dividing wedge in those countries. And then once they use that as a dividing wedge, look at what they're doing to people that are opposing. If you're just opposing government in Great Britain, they can't get you as hard as if they can get you for a hate crime for speaking out against Islam, right? That's the thing. They're getting you for hate crimes in Great Britain right now. That's what they're getting you for. And so the issue of Islam in America versus Islam versus Christians is just a dividing wedge that they're going to use to get you for a hate crime. And the perfect example of that is what just happened in Rochester, Minnesota this week. Shiloh Hendricks, probably a racist white chick, calls a little Somali boy in April of last year a racial slur. What happens? A convicted sex offender films her, shoots video of her using the racial slur, puts it out on social media. Of course, it's completely organic, right? There couldn't possibly be anything going on behind the scenes. There's no chance at all that this was a setup at all. Couldn't be a setup. Puts it out, and then police, all of you that are out there that are pro law enforcement investigates what's clearly a First Amendment issue, says that there's clear evidence that she violated the law, and Rochester prosecuting attorneys charge her with misdemeanor crimes, stretch it out over a year, charge her with a crime, take her to a trial. She spends thousands of dollars to defend herself, and she still walks away with a conviction on Thursday. And the mayor of Rochester admits that it's all about her language. She used words that they didn't like.
Do you know, is she appealing?
She's going to appeal.
Okay,
and
good. Because the thing is, that is not going to get far in appeal. Like, that is prima facie First Amendment. The judge should not have allowed the trial to go forward. The judge should have said, okay, well, you have nothing else. There's a clear constitutional right here as a solid defense. She's likely to win on its merits.
I wish that I could agree with you that she's going to win on the merits of it being a First Amendment issue, but I don't see it. They've got a better shot from the reports of what came out of that courtroom. They've got a better shot of winning on the judge's treatment of her attorney than they do on the First Amendment case, because they've clearly appealed to basically fighting words doctrine on this. And
I don't see you guys have what, it's the fourth circuit? Is that where you guys are?
Eighth Circuit.
Eighth or ninth.
I can't remember off the top of my head.
The Eighth Circuit's you're definitely not ninth. That's me.
Yeah, Eighth Circuit. Yeah.
So you guys don't have a crazy circuit court.
Well, but you got to remember, even before you get to the Eighth Circuit stuff, you have to get to the state. And state precedents supersedes Eighth Circuit when it comes to a misdemeanor charge. And so it's got to even be picked up by the state appeals court. And if it doesn't get picked up by the state appeals court, they're going to have a hell of a time getting it in front of a federal a federal appellate court in the Eighth Circuit without cause, as far as it is a federal issue. And so she's looking at thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands, which, of course, by the way, she's received over $1 million, or probably over $1 million now in Give, Send, Go funding, which whatever, I don't care one way or another. And
there are ways to get it to the federal court after a conviction like that. There are ways. I don't want to.
She still has to run they still have to run the process through the state. That's the biggest issue.
There are ways around the state. There are, but I don't
want very, very difficult on a low profile misdemeanor charge.
Well, there's that. That's definitely a factor. Then there's also lawyer strategy, and that's where they don't always understand a lawyer strategy. And sometimes a lawyer strategy is, no, we're going to take this. It'll take years, but we're going to go through that because that is the best way, because you sometimes have to check all the boxes, because if not, it can get kicked back down.
And that's the thing. If you try to skip the courts, the SCOTUS will reject based on standing in that you haven't gone through.
And there's another high profile case that just did this exact same thing, and that's the bricks and minifigs. Reckless Ben was facing local charges. He then took it to a federal court. Now the jurisdiction is all in the federal court.
Well, his federal case had nothing to do with his convictions, because they're going after him on criminal charges. What he took to federal were the civil aspects of the family that got ripped off.
He does have the Union Fork police in federal court, though.
But he hasn't. So the civil case that he got ended up going to federal, and he does have Union Fork on federal, but they haven't decided standing on that. Boy, we're so far afield. But anyway,
right. That's the hard part with a lot of these cases. There's so many different ways that you can go. Yeah.
I want to see, and this is right up in. This is right up in there again in the wheelhouse of what I talk about with some of what Georgie and Stacy are saying. Can't remember what state sent on a letter to parents not to put ham or bacon in their lunches because it's offensive to the Muslim children. So yeah, I say no. That's there again. I'm not saying that there isn't something happening, but what I am saying is that it's not that Islam's the threat. We're allowing the divisions to happen on these things. And so, Georgie brings up something about animal sacrifice. So animal sacrifice is demonic. Okay.
I would disagree with that, but okay.
Animal sacrifice is demonic. Tell that to your Jewish friends that are Orthodox Jews, because they would love the opportunity to sacrifice.
There's a reason because that's Jesus is called the Lamb of God. We believe Christians believe he was sacrificed like a lamb,
right? And precisely, Jews today would love nothing more than to be able to practice the Passover, which is nothing more than an animal sacrifice. Islam does not actually have a sacrificial system.
Currently,
they do not have a sacrificial system. Never has been part of Islam, the way that it was for Judaism, actual Judaism. The reason that Judaism doesn't have a sacrificial system today is because the temple was destroyed. And so therefore they can't practice a sacrificial system. And Christians are saying we should rebuild the temple for Jews, for Judaism. I know what the Michigan bill says, but I'm telling you that it's not in keeping with the practices of Islam. And Christians reject animal sacrifice, and Judaism would love to have animal sacrifice again, but they need the temple to be rebuilt. And if the temple is rebuilt, it's a sign of the Antichrist, the return of the beast. So we have to be very careful with talking about these things. And this once again, what I'm saying is I'm not rejecting that these things are happening. Are they happening? Yes, they're happening, but they're happening because it's part of a narrative that we're being fed to keep us at odds with one another. Because if you go out and you talk to the average Muslim person living in your community, they're over here going, I have no desire to have anything to, and I bought into the whole, oh, they can lie to you to fool you into trusting them. It's called taqiyya. But the vast majority of Muslims in the United States have no desire to take anything away from you at all. None. And I actually respect the fact that if they want to have a community where they live their lives the way they live them, and they don't want to let non-Muslims shop in their, and they don't want to they don't want to practice, Western life in their little communities, I'm all for that. Just like I believe if Christians want to gather in enclaves and practice their religion apart from the way the state dictates things, absolutely. Let Christians build their churches the way they want. We shouldn't have state-sanctioned marriage. And, so like Stacy brings up, but they're outbreeding us. Why are they outbreeding us? Because Americans have bought into the lie that it's only good to have 2 children, and then the rest of your life you need to be spent dedicating your life to a career. This is all part of the plan, folks. This division between Christians and Jews and Christians and Muslims and Jews and Islam and Christianity and Islam and Christian science and Christians and Scientology and yada, yada, yada is all part of the state wanting to keep everybody hating each other so that we're easier to manipulate, so that you all of a sudden aren't arguing about whether or not you're being surveilled, and you're arguing about whether or not the Muslim guy down the street wants to have you beheaded. That's what it is. It's all part of the plan. And I fell for it for a very long time. And it took getting out of my shell and losing a career. I literally lost. Like, folks, I don't know if you understand this. I'm making less than 50% of what I made. Not because I spoke out against Islam, not because I spoke out against Israel, not because I spoke out against Zionism. I spoke out against the system. And I started to point these things out. And as soon as I started pointing these things out, then they came for me. They're never going to come for you if you. They love it when you speak out against Democrats and the LGBTQ plus community. They love it when you do that because you're doing exactly what they want you to do. And when all the No Kings people get together and speak out and call Trump a fascist or a Nazi, because they know you're going to turn around and go, you blue-haired freaks, you moron, blue-haired homosexual bastards, I hate, you're all a bunch of child molesting sons of bitches, I hate. No, they're not. And they love it when you call them that because it keeps the focus on everything but what matters. Our enemy isn't the Muslim guy down the street. Our enemy isn't the normal Jewish guy down the street. He is sitting in the White House, Republican or Democrat, Trump or Biden, Harris or Trump, Harris or Vance, Amy Klobuchar, or whoever your Democrat leftist is, or whoever your approved Republican is, that's your enemy. And you have to ask yourselves, which Republicans are not allowed to be Republican anymore? Which Republicans are not allowed to hold office anymore? Campaign against, and you have organizations that are spending billions of dollars to make sure certain people don't get to keep their positions anymore. Those are your enemies. Are the people that are spending money on kidding the Marjorie Taylor Greens out of office, that are getting the Thomas Masseys out of office. You want to know who you shouldn't trust? Don't trust the person who's getting millions of dollars from AIPAC. You want to know who you shouldn't trust? It's the person who, for some reason, no matter how bad they are, no matter how many times their names pop up on some sort of weird list, FC files, those are the people that are the problem. the person who's out there calling out that Charlie Kirk probably wasn't assassinated by a trans-loving furry freak and that he was more than likely a patsy, those are the people you need to listen to. I'm not talking about Candace Owens. I think Candace Owens is a freak, and contrary to what Skipper said, I don't think she's funny at all. But listen to my friend Ken Silva.
I don't think she herself is funny. I think some of the stuff she says is funny.
Yeah. But go check out my friend Ken Silva. He goes by JD Cashless on X. And look at what he reports on. And when I tell you this guy brings receipts, he brings receipts. Ken Silva has pointed out all of the problems with the Butler assassination attempt. All of them. All of them. The guy in the Butler assassination attempt, it was a setup. He was a patsy. They weren't trying to kill Trump. And if they would have taken it if they could, they would have taken it if they could, but that was not about actually assassinating Donald Trump. It was about stoking the flames of division between the left and the right. Ken Silva,
we do have to start raping up.
Yeah. Raping up? What the?
I knew you'd get that.
Ken Silva points out the Patriot Front, right? We've been hearing again about the Patriot Front. Skipper and I have joked about the Patriot Front. Nowhere in the world will you ever see a group of white guys talking about how much they hate minorities while parading around in the exact same khaki pants with their faces covered and never getting arrested.
Right?
Why is that? Why is it that the Patriot Front... Oh, you want to know why? Because now my friend Ken Silva has exposed the Patriot Front for what it is. It is a federal plant. Oh, yeah. And also, guess who's cooperating with the feds with the Patriot Front? The American Civil Liberties Union and the Southern Poverty Law Center are helping fund it. Why? It's to stoke the flames of division. It's 100% to stoke the flames of division. That's all. That's the only thing that ever gets me in trouble is that I just tell you, like, it's not what you think it is. It's not what you think it is. But we want to be comforted in our division. We want to blame the Democrats or we want to blame the Republicans. And I'm looking at you and I'm telling you, it's both of them. They're all in on it. They're all 100% in on it. And the ones that aren't in on it get removed. If they can get rid of them by voting them out in a primary, they will. And if they can't get rid of them that way, then they take them out some other way. And then they tell you that how they were taken out was some transferee activist with a 30-06 that he's never shot before on the top of a roof with a gun that should have like exploded Charlie Kirk's throat. I can tell the number of people that have never fired it. Skipper will back me up on this. The number of people that fired a 30-06 into something alive will tell you that it was not a 30-06 that killed Charlie Kirk. It was not a 30-06 that killed Charlie Kirk. Especially from that distance with a rifle that had been disassembled and reassembled in a hurry on the top of a building. That's not how a 30-06 works, especially a high caliber round like a 30-06. That's not how it works. Am I saying he wasn't killed? No, Charlie Kirk was killed, but he wasn't killed by Tyler Robinson from over 100 yards away on a weapon that he had never shot before. It just not how he died.
We have to wrap this up because we've been going 2 hours. Do you have anything you want?
I still managed to get my rants in.
Do you want to plug your show or anything else?
Well, if you're over here watching and you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, you probably never will at this point. It's a safe bet that I've scared away anybody that would have subscribed by now. So
I sub.
I like it when you sub. I mean, wait, different conversation. Hey, where is AVA, by the way?
I don't know.
I'm a little disappointed in that hairy Hawaiian.
I do have a video coming out later on this week that I did it because of questions he was asking me. So that will be out probably on Thursday or Friday. So that's all I'm plugging. I'll be back here again tomorrow morning with Coffee with the Skipper. And I do want to thank TC for joining me and allowing me to interview him. This has been a good.
For 75% of it.
See, and you were worried I was going to make you cry.
I wasn't worried you were going to make me cry. I was emotional when we got started because I've been thinking about how long we've known each other
Right.
and how you've stuck with me through all of this. I've learned who my friends are. I'll tell you that.
That is true. I'm like every other Marine. I'm no better friend, but no worse enemy.
I think I'm comforted by that, but I'm not. I think.
All right, guys. Thank you for being here,
Thanks.
for watching me and TC. TC, thank you for being here. As
Thanks
always.
for not giving me something to argue about.
And ladies and gentlemen, if you know of any veterans who would like to be interviewed by us, let them know about our show. We would love to have them on.
Even better, if they don't want to be interviewed by us, that's more of a reason.
That's actually kind of more common, but all right, guys. Thank you for being here, and as always, thank you for being worth serving.
Hey there, Veteran Nation fans. I am talking to you today because I have teamed up with a company that's dedicated to supporting veterans. What they do is they help you gather all the medical evidence that you're going to need to submit a VA disability claim. Now, it's all that is designed to help you get the benefits that you have earned. Right now, more than 17 million veterans don't have their full benefits. And if that sounds something familiar, either for yourself or a family member, now is the time to act. With this company, what they offer is free consultations with the medical team so they can figure out how they can best help you. And what they provide is board-certified doctors with experience working with the VA, comprehensive medical documentation for both physical and mental conditions. And the services that they provide include nexus letters, telehealth evaluations, DBQs, TDIU, aid and attendance, and so much more. What you're going to do is you're going to click the link that's in the description of this video and sign up for a free consultation. Make sure you do me a favor, share this, and also tag a veteran. Let's help more people get every single thing that they have